Welcome, S.E.M podcast. We're joined tonight by Brandon Egan. I'm Jack Bryce. Here with Zack, Hewlett. We're hosting for you, and we're just loving this. If you want to be on the show, you can email us. It's sempodcast@51spylaw.com, and that's also our website where we post our episodes live. You can find the links there to all your streaming services as well. If you just want to listen, you can also watch it on YouTube if you want to see our faces. So,
our beautiful faces.
Beautiful faces. Forgot that part of the script. So,
you're good.
Thanks for coming on, Brandon.
That's my pleasure. Ever since I saw it was on LinkedIn, actually. That's kind of how I first became aware of it and started listening to it a little bit and loved it. So hence reached out like, oh, this is great. Trying to support it. And then you guys invited me to be on it. I was like, oh, okay.
That's how it works.
That's right.
Your name's been mentioned a few times, so we had to give you a shout out.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, I told you we recorded Michael Hill just the other night, and we trained him. So
he was a great companion. I loved working with him.
The format of this is we talk a little bit about how you ended up in Scotland, and we skip over the mission, see what you've been up to in the meantime between then and now, and then we'll go back and talk more about Scotland itself. So if you want to start us off with where you were coming from and how you got your call, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share that. When I was growing up, my family moved around a lot. I lived in multiple places, but I often call Michigan kind of my home because that's where I was in high school. And I actually graduated early. I was 17 when I graduated, and I was still 17 when I went to BYU. So at the time, obviously, you couldn't go on your mission until you're 19. But I went to BYU at 17, turned to 18 while I was there. And so I got lots of schooling in before I was able to go. I loved Brigham Young University, but when I was at BYU, I really became much more growing in my faith in Christ. I really did. I started taking the religion classes at BYU, the Book of Mormon classes. I started reading the scriptures significantly more than I did before that. My family grew up having scripture study, and so I knew about the scriptures. I had a desire to serve a mission, but it was kind of, talked about it briefly, and it was in my mind. But when I got to BYU, and suddenly I was reading the scriptures every day, and not just reading them, really diving into them, I fell in love with the scriptures, and I fell in love with sharing it with others, and I wanted to share it with others. So there was a fire that started to burn within me after reading about Alma and Amulek and the missionary work that they did. And there was a specific time I remember reading the Book of Mormon very early because I had an early class. So I was trying to read it before class. So it was still dark outside, and I had a little lamp that I was reading. And when I was reading about Alma and Amulek and the difficulties they had and how they witnessed a lot of challenges and even people being burned that they had been teaching and had been converted to the truth, my heart was swelling, and I started to cry in the little apartment I was in at BYU. And I wanted to still share the gospel like they did. So that's when I first started developing a strong desire. And I even really strengthened my testimony in Jesus Christ so much through other means as well. And had a specific experience that made me really want to serve a mission and teach about Jesus Christ. So as I was getting close to 19, I wanted to submit my mission papers as soon as possible. Right? At that time you could do 3 months before the date you planned on go. I wanted to go on my birthday, on my 19th birthday. My birthday was September 15th. So I was hoping to go that day. So I actually submitted it 3 months before. I guess it was the 16th of 3 months before because it was a Sunday exactly 3 months before. So on Monday morning, I went out and submitted my mission papers. And I waited and didn't quite come back. Finally, I did hear back, and it was sent to my house in Michigan. So I went back home, and it came July 12th. It's Friday, July 12th is when it came. And I was eager to open it, but my family wanted us to all gather together and friends and open it together. So I didn't open it until Sunday, July 14th.
Oh wow.
And it was, I was really excited to open it. I go to open it, and it was interesting because I had had some people recommend you open it in private and ponder upon it. I kind of wish I would have done that in some ways, but when I first opened it, I started reading and I read that I was going to Scotland, and I had this profound excitement kind of come over me, this joy. But then all of a sudden, the cheers of everyone around me, right? Because you have your friends, your family there, and everyone's suddenly excited for you. And the spiritual prompting sort of changed because it's now the excitement of just the mission and people cheering for you. So I kind of wish it would have been nice to maybe open it in private and ponder upon it, and maybe enjoy the spirit of it a little longer. But either way, I was still very excited to go to Scotland, and uh, I even though I got it, it was a little bit of a longer wait time than I thought I was going to have to. Uh, I was hoping to go sooner, right on my birthday, September 15th, but I didn't go into the MTC until October 30th. So I had a little bit of waiting around time, gave me some opportunity to spend time with family and enjoy getting ready for my mission.
Yeah. And what year was this?
2002. Yeah, that's a good question. So I got it on July 12th, 2002, and then opened it, and then went in October 2002.
Okay.
And actually, I should make a quick comment though. So the priesthood session of General Conference in October 2002, Elder Ballard gave a fantastic talk about the greatest generation of missionaries, is what it was titled. So that was a talk that, even though I already had my mission call by that time, that's where we talked about raising the bar. How missionary work is something we need to prepare for more diligently. We need to be more like the stripling warriors. He gives the story of the stripling warriors and talked about raising the bar on the missionaries preparing, as well as the parents preparing their children for missions. And I was excited. I was ambitious to be part of the greatest generation of missionaries, the way he described it. And so it's definitely a talk I recommend reading, because I think it still applies today. And the funny story is, he gave a very good talk this past General Conference about how his mission impacted his life for the rest of his life. But that's for the second section, it sounds like, of this podcast.
Yeah, man, you're just jumping ahead here. That's all right. This is really, it's whatever you want to cover, whenever you want to cover it. We're happy to listen to it. But yeah, so let's skip ahead now. You get home from Scotland. What have you been up to in the last nearly 20 years now?
Yeah, it's crazy to see how time flies, and a lot of things change. So when I first got back, I spent a little bit of time with family, but went right back to Brigham Young University. So again, I didn't get back until November 2004. And my mom was very happy to have me back, and so was my dad, and I spent time with my brothers. Getting acclimated to the post-mission life was a little more difficult than I thought. I loved my mission when I was there. I was very happy, and then suddenly not being a missionary after 2 years of doing it wasn't quite as easy as I thought, but people still welcomed me in. I then, so in January, got back into BYU and started going to school there. I wanted to use those talents I gained on my mission. And one of the things that I thought I developed skills at was management and business. And so I ended up going into business management, the Marriott School at Brigham Young University. I really enjoyed it while I was there. Had a lot of great friends at school. I still kept in contact with a lot of missionary companions for a little while. Used to go to the mission reunions while I was still there. And BYU usually had a burn supper night. I would often show up in my kilt, walking around campus, and that was fun. I then, so when I graduated from BYU in 2007, April 2007, I got a job with American Express in their finance department, specifically auditing of the finance department. And so I was an internal auditor. That was my first job right out of college. I was in the Salt Lake City office. And it was crazy that my dad actually had worked in the Salt Lake City office when it opened 25 years before that. And so I started in my job in the same place, the same building, even he started his job. But
Interesting.
I worked there for a while and went to get my MBA. So I got married actually in 2007 as well. So that's a very important part. I shouldn't miss that out. So I met my wife at BYU. We dated, and I had just graduated, and we got engaged shortly before I graduated, but we got married after I graduated. So it was in June of 2007. And then I started my job at American Express. And I was working in the Salt Lake City office, as I mentioned. A couple of years later, I wanted to get my MBA. And so I was still working. So American Express helped cover part of my MBA expenses. I didn't want to lose my experience at work either, because 2009, when I was going back, was a pretty rough financial time. I did not want to sacrifice a stable job that I had, because the financial crisis of 2009 was really bad. So I kept working and going to school in the evenings, and that was very difficult because I was getting up like at 5:30 in the morning and sometimes staying up till midnight to do homework, and up early the next morning to get to work and get things done. My firstborn.
Was that back to BYU, or where'd you go?
So I went to University of Utah for that one. Yeah,
There
so I was working in the Salt Lake City office.
There you go, Zack.
I'm sure he still cheers for the team down south.
Yeah, I do. When it comes to sports, I'm definitely a BYU fan. I liked University of Utah when I was there, though. It was a good experience. So I did my MBA, and it was crazy. So my firstborn son, Joseph, and he was born 1 year after I got married. So we actually were in the hospital for our first anniversary. Now he was actually born 2 days before our anniversaries, actually. So we were married on June 21st. Sorry, we married June 23rd, 2007. Joseph was born June 21st, 2008. So just 1 year later, and we were in the hospital with him still.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Wow.
He has been a great son, but we then had another son, Dan, 2 years later. And I got to get to Violet, because Violet's my third. She was born 3 years after that. So Dan was 2010 and Violet was 2013. But when I was getting my MBA, I had the two kids. And so I felt really bad for my wife, because she was basically a stay-at-home mother while I was off at work or school pretty much all day. And she had to take care of the kids. And it was a very busy time for both of us, and sort of difficult. Right as soon as I finished my MBA at University of Utah, I ended up going to New York City. So American Express had a job that they wanted me to take. So they solicited me to take it. And I did. So we moved to New York City, and we lived in a very small apartment. It's about 400 square feet.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was crazy. So we had the two kids still at the time, so Joseph and Dan. It was only one bedroom apartment, so Joseph and Dan got the bedroom, and my wife and I slept on a pull-out bed. We had to put away every day.
Gosh.
And that was crazy. So we loved the city. It was a wild thought to go out there. Weren't sure how long we were going to be there, but met some friends quickly through the church. The church welcomed us. We had really good friends really quickly, helped us move in. I spent a lot of times at the parks. My wife got to meet lots of the other mothers there, and they all in the same boat. Family was usually far away for everybody. So they all kind of bonded and became good friends, and I was able to work. And so going from so busy with my MBA, even though we were in New York City, I now had so much more time. I was busy with the New York City work, but didn't have to do my MBA in the evening. So I would still come home, spend time with Tessa and the kids, and we loved it. We had a great time and a very good experience. We ended up moving while we're in the city to another place that was a little bit bigger. It was 900 square feet. Going from 400 to 900 felt huge. Like, that's so big. But, if you've got a house, that would still sound so small. But still had a good time. Eventually, though, Violet, my daughter, was born in New York City, and it was just getting a little crowded. She was sleeping in the closet. And since she didn't have her own room, the boys were in a room, Tessa and I were in a room. And we're like, you know what? After Violet was 1 year old, we should probably get some more space. And we looked at some places in New Jersey, and we found a home in 2014. And that was a great. We're very happy to find the home. It's a fantastic town. We're still here now. So I've lived in the house that I'm in. You can see me in now, 2014, and it's just been a great community, great school. I still work at American Express, and it's been a good business career that I've been able to develop and enjoy. And so back to the point I was making earlier about the talk by President Ballard this past General Conference. He talked about how his mission has blessed his life. And he talked about how his mission helped him prepare for business and for the experiences he was going to have. It's so true. I loved what I gained on my mission. I loved the experiences I had. I absolutely developed so many more skills in public speaking, working with people you've never met. How do you coordinate things? Confidence in presenting things, organizing, being disciplined, being thorough in how you study and research things. Because as a missionary, I was trying to do those. I was trying to research the gospel and study it and learn it and share it with others. I had to, do a lot of things that I think have surprisingly translated well to a business environment. And so I love that talk by President Ballard, because he served his mission in the UK, and we served in Scotland. It's part of the UK. So it just rang true to me as I was listening to it.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely, I've had the same or similar experiences. Mission pushed me so far outside my comfort zone that it's almost hard now to reach that same extreme
Yeah,
outside of the comfort zone. So
It's very
That's right.
true.
all right, so back to Scotland. You entered the MTC in end of October 2002, and you can walk us through, who you served with and where you served in Scotland.
Yeah, it's amazing the importance of a journal. Even though, there's lots of experiences that I thought that I was going to never forget, I started reading my journal to kind of, actually recently, a few months ago, and then also to prepare for this, and just realized how much I'd kind of forgotten. But, it's so important to keep a record of things, because as I was able to go back to it was great. My first companion was actually, his name was Elder Gata Ulan. He was from Russia. Didn't speak English. And we had such a
Wow.
hard time communicating with one another, because there was some kind of mistake. I don't know how it happened, but he was supposed to go to at least English before going to mission. He shows up and does not speak English, and he gets assigned to me, and we do not know how to communicate. We try to use hand signs of some kind, or point to the wrist for a time. Like, you see the time, like time to go, that kind of stuff. But that only lasted for a couple of days, actually, because there happened to be another Russian missionary who was there, who spoke very good English. So they moved companions there. So I actually got Elder Noble, was the companion I had. I then went to Scotland, and actually before that, I want to talk about the MTC a little bit more. I loved it while I was there. You had such a short time, because I already spoke English, and yet it was an amazing experience in the MTC. The spirit was so strong. One of the memorable experiences I had was Elder Ballard came to the MTC and shared some talks and thoughts while he was there. And it was such a good experience to meet with him there. Also, I had the opportunity to have a very powerful testimony of Joseph Smith. There was a time when we were in the MTC, and the mission president was giving a lesson on Joseph Smith. And I just had this overwhelming confirmation come over me. I mentioned before I had a strong testimony of Jesus Christ going into my mission. And I had a testimony of Joseph Smith, but when I got there, I had very powerful assurance and confidence from the Holy Spirit telling me that Joseph Smith truly was a prophet of God, and that the Lord had called him to restore the gospel. And so that sort of gave me an excitement and fire to go share it with the people of Scotland. I had the opportunity to have my first area in Edinburgh. So my trainer was Elder Cox. He was toward the end of his mission, and he actually finished his mission with me. Him and I worked together for 2 transfers, 3 months about, and he finished his mission while I was there. He was a nice guy. I really liked Heather Cox. And I think he trained me well. Sometimes he was hard on himself, though. He didn't always. Sometimes he felt like he was failing as a trainer. I was like, no, you're not. I was just sometimes overly ambitious and maybe making mistakes because I would work too hard to try and share the gospel, and sometimes it wasn't always the best or most effective way. But it was great. I had
training is hard. I didn't realize
Yeah.
before my mission. You hear about like trainers, greenies, but once you're in it, that's really quite difficult for both trainee and trainer.
Yeah, for sure. I then had still in the Edinburgh area as the Morningside Heights ward, and it was Elder Cooley. He was a fun guy. He had a good sense of humor. One of my favorite things about him is the guy would make me laugh a lot. He was always joking about things. But one of the times I remember the most was I was always trying to run to the next house. Like I was, again, as I mentioned, I was a little bit still very excited and fresh greenie who was excited to go to house. And I would be going very quickly to each house. And one time he's like, Brandon, where's the fire? He didn't say Brandon. He said, Elder Egan, where's the fire? And I was like, okay, I'll slow down. So but that was a good time. I really had a lot of fun with him. I then moved to Johnston 2 area is what it was called. And the other Lovejoy was the companion there. I then in that same area had Elder Annika. He was a good missionary as well. Him and I talked about sports a lot sometimes, and he was from Canada, and he played football and was a quarterback when he was growing up. So we talked about football and various topics as well, about his family, and I always respected how much he loved family and the importance of being good to your family. He always talked about Orkney, so it was funny because Orkney was one of his favorite areas, and my next area after that was Orkney. So as I was getting ready to transfer, he gave me all these tips about Orkney and what you need to do and how you prepare for it. And I got to Orkney with Elder Dunn, and he's a good guy. He had lots of experience. I got my my driver's license while I was still in Johnston, and then at that point I was able to go to a lot of other places that had cars, because some places had cars, some places didn't. And so since I had a license, I was often in car missions the rest of my time. Orkney was one of my favorites, though. I loved Orkney. It was the highlands to the top. A very small branch. We've only got like 7 people who were attending the branch, and it was often windy. Like sometimes you get 70-mile-per-hour winds, and that's just their day. It's not like a hurricane. It's just really windy. And so many good experiences while I was there. One of them was the Ba. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Ba, but it's like this legalized street fight practically. On Christmas Day.
Zack served in Orkney as well.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I was there.
For Christmas Day or New Year's Day?
No, I wasn't. So I got moved there. Funny enough, same transition as you. I was in the Johnston ward for 6 weeks, and then I moved to Orkney. And I was there late October until first few weeks of December, and then they closed the area. So I missed the Ba. I heard things about it, and I was like, yes, I'm definitely gonna experience this, but I did not get the opportunity because they shut it down.
Oh man, yeah, it was a crazy experience because they basically divided into 2 groups: the uppies and the doonies, and you're trying to get the Ba to your side of the town, and it's like not many rules. They would have like ambulances on standby because people get injured, and it's pretty dangerous. And if you had some beef with somebody, you would take it out on them. Then you'd sometimes save it up for that day. So it's a crazy thing. I still remember just being baffled. I'm like, they're really doing this? And I was just sitting there watching it. I was the bystander. But it was Orkney was so memorable for that and several other reasons. I got to train Elder Hill. So you mentioned you had Elder Hill on here before. He was one of my favorite companions for sure. He was a lot of fun. We talked about skiing a lot because he was talented at skiing. And loved working with him. So we got along really well. And then Elder Bradley was after that. And Elder Bradley and I had a lot of good spiritual conversations. We had a lot of different topics that we would talk about as we'd go about the scriptures and things like that. And it gave a really good relationship I had with him as a great friend that I still keep in contact with at times, sometimes call him or email him, but not as much. Probably could do better. And we had a guy that we kept teaching so diligently, who lived on one of the islands, and he would always welcome us, and he was always so nice, but we could never seem to get him to commit to baptism or to join the church. But it was really, he was a great companion. I then went to the Livingston area with other Simons, and that was also very fun. He was from Canada. We had a short time together. And I also had Elder Mueller. He was from Switzerland. He spoke like 3 languages, I think. And he was a really good guy. I think I moved to Glenrothes for just 6 weeks. It was a really short time, but it was a very good experience if I was there. I had Elder Brownlow. He was from England. And so he was very good. He was an athlete too. So we'd sometimes talk about sports, and we'd play sports with people in the ward. And it was a really good time. I then moved back to the Edinburgh area, had Elder Booton as a companion, and then Elder White as my last companion before I left my mission, coming home. And there were just lots of different experiences throughout the time that was just really good. I got to meet a lot of the missionaries while I was in those areas. But, there's so many experiences to share. So I'm not sure if there's any specific categories you want me to go through, funny or whatever.
I'm curious. I never served directly with you, but I served around you a little bit when you were in Edinburgh at the end there. And then I served with Elder Hill after you, of course. But one thing I always noticed about you, and part of your diligence, was memorizing. We had the packets of scriptures and things to memorize. And if I understand right, you went through all of it, right?
Yes, I did.
How has that impacted you? And why?
Yeah, I did memorize every day for because there was some point I remember on my mission where there was a promise that if we diligently tried to memorize, there's a quote by President Monson. I actually wrote it down in my journal. And if you memorize the scriptures every day, you'll be blessed with a greater memory. And so I wanted to do that. So I actually spent every day, I would pick a scripture, and I would carry these cards with me, because they usually have them on a card or whatever. I'd pick a scripture every day to memorize. And so that served me well. I mean, I've had my kids talk to me at times, and other people in the ward. I often just start quoting a scripture because there's so many scriptures that come up in different parts of life. And I'll be like, well, as we know from the Doctrine and Covenants section, whatever, or the Book of Mormon, Book of Alma, chapter 32, I can start quoting scriptures at times. And it's really helped me, I'll be honest. So my current calling is I'm in the bishopric here in what's called the Short Hills Ward in New Jersey. And sometimes you have people you call on to speak and then they don't show up, or they get sick that day, or something happens. And so I've had to fill in a few times. And sometimes sometimes you don't know till the morning of, right? Or you're looking out in the congregation, the person's not there. And you're like, okay, I guess I'll be filling the remaining time. And there was one time specifically where all 3 speakers didn't show up. It was kind of crazy.
Oh, wow.
But someone did send somebody else to have a talk read for them, which helped, and I just still covered for 2 people. But because of that, having memorized so many scriptures, I was able to just kind of pick some off the top of my head that I want to talk about and kind of go through them. So that was one of the things I was very grateful that I did on my mission, was diligently try and memorize scriptures, because there's so many good scriptures that you can turn to at different challenges in your life.
Yeah, that's great. I've been in that situation too as part of a bishopric, and one thing that helped me from the mission was making the lesson outlines. You have those outlines, and it's maybe a half an hour lesson with somebody teaching a principle, and that's basically what a talk or a lesson at church is. So I've been able to pull on a brief outline and give what needed to be given at that time. But
Yeah.
that's great.
I'm sure you had a little bit of practice too in the Orkney branch when when you showed up and had to perform one of the myriad of tasks that are on.
Yep.
I on my own episode, I reflected my first Sunday there. I blessed, I passed the sacrament, I gave a talk, and I taught Sunday school. All and I think honestly, my companion at the time was Elder Willis, and he was on his way home, and I'm sure he told everybody, "Hey, let's just give him everything when he gets there." And it was really a unique experience because I'm from Utah and grew up in the church, and so I was like, man, what's it like to be in this type of a place where you're just everyone is dependent on participating and contributing.
Yeah, that's so true. And I had those experiences in mission as well, where you get to the Sunday school lesson or whatever, and they just kind of look at you and like, "Can you teach the lesson?"
Yep, exactly.
So you talked about studying about Alma and Amulek and the type of mission they had, and then being excited for your own mission. They had some definite struggles, and I know we all did as part of the mission. Do you have a particular story of something like that you thought was pretty defining while you were there?
From the scriptures that I liked, or from one of the things, my mission?
Your mission, and maybe just how maybe how it compared to what you thought it would be like before you even got there, but actually being there.
Yeah, I really did have a lot of experiences that really helped change me and make me a different person. One of the ones that I just really remember was so there was someone named Mila Alvaro. She was one of the ones I was able to baptize. And she'd been taught by a few missionaries before, but she was hesitant to join the church, and was really just not sure about it. It's almost like she believed it in part, but couldn't quite wrap her head around committing to it. And we decided to just do a little differently because she'd already been taught by several missionaries, and my companion at the time, Brother Simmons, is the one who had the idea. I said, "Well, what if we do this? What if we sing a song and we each say our own prayer, and as we sing the song, the Spirit can hopefully be invited, and as she prays, as we each take a turn praying, she can gain a testimony." And it was an amazing experience as we were singing. The Spirit did fill the room. So as much as she'd been taught the lessons, it was the music that surprisingly really brought the Spirit into her life. And what happened is we each prayed. I took a turn praying, he took a turn praying, and she was the last person to pray. And when she was praying, she wasn't asking so much if she should join the church. She felt the Spirit so strongly by that point that she wanted to join the church. She's like, "I know I need to join the church, and this is what I want to do." And so that's kind of where I loved it, because I was not so much of a musical talent. And Elder Bednar's talk from this Passionate conference, I relate to, because he starts his talk off by talking about how he is not music, and his family and Elder Quentin Cook can testify that he's terrible at singing, but yet he loves singing them anyways. And I'm kind of that same way. I've had some spiritual experiences while listening to the hymns of the church, even though my singing voice is so off, it might be distracting other people from feeling the Spirit. But that was a really memorable experience that I had that I really loved. There was another one that I really liked, where there was we had this feeling we were supposed to go knock on these doors down this road. And we kind of go down and nothing happened. We didn't really meet anybody. And so we just felt like we should come back though and do it again. And as we were knocking doors, we suddenly knocked on the door. Someone who just got back from the airport. Literally, the bags were still on the front door. His name was Peter McIntyre. And we're like, oh, you just got back from the airport. We can come back another time. He's like, no, go ahead and come in. Yeah, I'm feeling up for chatting about the gospel. And we did come in and we chatted with him about living prophet. He was so inspired by it. It's like, we have a living prophet today. He was amazed by it, and he wanted to know more about General Conference because he wanted to know about what they're saying today. And we shared with him some messages of the living prophet's messages. And so it really was a good experience. And then the last one I guess I'll share right now was the importance of not giving up and not stopping until you're released, I guess. So when I was on the last day in the mission field, and we were all at the mission home, and we're kind of gathering. It was an exciting time to see your companions again, friends again that you spent the past 2 years with, that you started out in the MTC with. I still wanted to share the gospel, and I didn't want to stop. And so I decided to grab one of the other missionaries, his Elder Holt, and I said, "Let's go keep knocking doors. I don't want to give up yet. I don't want to be done." And we start knocking doors, and all of a sudden we knock on this one door, and the person is getting ready to go to the airport. He's got his back. So it's the opposite of what I just gave, where the person just got back. This person's now leaving. Now he's going to China. He was from China. He's been studying for school for some time. So we come in though, and we share with him the gospel, and he is just amazed by it. The spirit was so strong in the room, and he is just, I want to read this book. You give it to me, and we gave it to him. And I, to be honest, don't know whatever happened to him, unfortunately. But I remember specifically seeing his enthusiasm to learn more about what we were sharing with him. It's almost like he had an initial testimony already developing in him. And he took the Book of Mormon with him, and he left to the airport. We then left. So I don't know whatever happened to him, but it was one of those seeds you possibly planted that I hope something good came of it. But if we hadn't gone out, we might not have caught him before he left. But we gave him that book, the Book of Mormon, and we were able to share our testimony with him, and he was very excited to learn there's a living prophet today, and there's other scriptures that he can read. So
I can tell you one thing. So at the end of my mission, so this is, probably the last 6 months of 2006, there was a missionary, and I don't recall his name because I met him once and I didn't serve in the Edinburgh zone at all my entire mission. But I met him once, and he was of Chinese heritage, but he was from Texas. And
okay.
he had been assigned to our mission, and the conversation that I remember having briefly with him was, I'm not quite sure why I'm here, because I am fluent in Chinese, and it just feels strange to me. Well, interestingly enough, probably similar situation to the person that you spoke with, he started having conversations with exchange students and people that were there for uni, and he started their own Chinese speaking branch while we were there.
That's so cool.
Just like, one group, there was one individual in particular that joined the church, and then he invited like 10 people to the next activity, and 2 or 3 of them got baptized. So I have no idea where that stands now, but I know for a certainty that you probably had something to say in that. You never know. That person may come across someone and they'll go, "Oh yeah, I remember that conversation." So don't give up hope. It was really cool to see this young man who felt out of place initially find his place, and that's where he was the rest of his mission. Did an incredible job.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Actually, because again, this was my last day there, and so I don't know whatever happened. I didn't get to follow up or hear anything, but I really hope that something sparked or did help things. And there was one other one I guess I'll share as well. Her name was Barbara Thompson. Her story was very interesting because she had faith in God, very strong faith. She also had a testimony of the pre-existence because of some experiences she had in her life. And she had been looking for a church that taught about the pre-existence, that believed in it. And I still remember, the thing is, our church sometimes had a bad reputation from just rumors about us. Fantastic, but there's lots of people who spread falseness about our church or things like that make it difficult for people to believe or want to learn anything from us. So we were knocking doors and come to her house. She sees us and it's almost like this, like, oh my goodness, I don't want to talk to these people. Kind of a feeling. And she's just almost trying to combat us a little bit. And what I thought was just going to be a short conversation kept going on and on her doorstep. And we needed to go to another appointment though, but we'd kind of briefly mentioned about the pre-existence. We believe in living prophets today and how prophets were called before they were born and stuff like that. Suddenly kind of sparked it. She's like, wait, what? And then we had to go and they're like, hey, can we come back? And she's like, yeah, you can come back. But it didn't seem like almost very sincere. And as soon as we come back, we're like, we felt we should teach about the plan of salvation and the pre-mortal life. And when we get into it, she's suddenly asking questions like, where's the scriptures to say that? Where can you do it? And we were quoting scriptures that she talked about the pre-mortal existence. And she was just fascinated by it. She's like, hey, I need to write that down. And she's like taking notes and like really trying to read it herself. And then again, similar to before, she had all these questions that kind of kept prolonging the conversation. We had to go to another appointment. And then we come back another time. And then she's now very different. And she's like, I am amazed at what you taught me last time. And I haven't found any other church that teaches about the pre-existence. I want to know more. And let's talk about it. So we ended up teaching her the discussion. She ended up getting baptized shortly after. I actually got transferred away. So I wasn't able to. I did come back for baptism, actually. But some other missionaries were the teacher after I left. And I was very happy to be able to come back to her baptism. And I still keep in contact with her. I still write letters to her at times. I've even called her a few times. And it's amazing how some people have truths out there that they want to explore, but sometimes they just don't know where to find it, right?
Yeah. That's pretty amazing.
That's so cool.
It's not very often you hear people who have that belief pre-existing the missionaries introducing the gospel to them.
Yeah,
there's lots of questions usually about this life and the next life, but pre-existence, that's pretty unique.
Yeah, it was very unique. Yeah, because everyone's worried about the next life usually.
Yeah.
So they don't usually even ask about the pre-existence, but she had such a strong testimony of it.
Wow.
She was amazed to find this church, our church, teaches so much doctrine about it, not just one or two verses, but lots of things that we know about it, from the Pearl of Great Price and living prophets today and the restoration through Joseph Smith. So
talk to us a little bit about when you started your mission. It was under President Wilkinson, and when you finished with President Vriens. Talk to us about your experiences you had with the mission presidents that you served under.
Yeah, I loved both of them. They were such good men. When I first got there, I was in the Edinburgh area, so I would go to church, and President Wilkinson was there as well. And I remember President Wilkinson would often talk a lot about the atonement. He would focus on his own conferences about the atonement and what he was learning from the book, The Infinite Atonement, by Tad Callister. He was very good at reminding us about the importance to focus on Christ and how we were blessed by the atonement. And I had a lot of good conversations with him in our one-on-one interviews at times at some conferences. And he was a guy I trusted a lot, and I got to know. And I was very glad to have him as a mission president. And then I again served under President Vriens as well. For him, I was one of the assistants of the presidents when he was the mission president. And so then I got to know him very well because it's in the same house. and we would plan together. We'd talk about things together. We would pray about which missionaries should serve with each other. And we would have the big board of all the pictures of all the missionaries and where we put them. And that was such an interesting experience to be able to get there and, kind of take them all down and then put them all back up, and then take some of them down and then put them back up, and then maybe reverse some of the ones you did. And then all of a sudden, usually it would just suddenly feel right about which companions are to serve with each other. And so sometimes it's a long process, but I love the sincerity of his heart and how much he really did care about the missionaries. Yet he at times felt they had to be, disciplined on them. But he also wanted to trust them. He wanted to give them the opportunity to serve and be obedient and follow the guidance themselves. He didn't always want to have to be the ones telling them what to do. He wanted them to follow the Spirit for themselves. And it was interesting. There was a lot of fun being able to get to know him so well and learning about his life. And he would tell you stories about his family. And so when you have such a close interaction with the mission president the way I did, you did become a friend. And I really liked it. There's lots of experiences, though. I guess I'll share another one. It was kind of a funny one. As you know, when missionaries come, they go up to Pratt's Hill to dedicate their mission. And then when they leave, they go up to Pratt's Hill to end their mission. And missionaries that were getting ready to end their mission, and I was supposed to help them get there. It was a very foggy night, like so foggy. It was dark. You could hardly see. And we'd always parked in the same spot and then walked up. It was so foggy, we couldn't seem to find the place we were parking, so we parked at a different spot. And we start trying to go up the hill, but we couldn't find the path that we would normally take, and we just did not know where we were at. We got so lost, we couldn't find our way back to the car. So we walked around for a long time. The missionaries are getting frustrated. They're like, they want to finish their mission. But after wandering for so long, we finally find the road again. Like, we didn't even know where the road was because we wandered so far from the road. And we couldn't see headlights of cars because that's how thick the fog was. It was so dark. We eventually found our way back. We repositioned ourselves, got back up to Brad's Hill, let them pray to finish their mission. But it was kind of a crazy experience to be so lost in the dark, and it makes you realize the benefit of light. I often have used that as an analogy a few times since my mission, that if you have the guidance of the Lord, even if you think you know where you're going, you can get lost. So you have to trust in the Lord in various aspects in all things and take his guidance. Because we had been up there multiple times before, and we should have known where to go. But when you take steps without following the guidance or following the way you know you should go, you can get lost easily. So that was one of the crazy experiences, and we got back very late, getting back to the mission. And President Vriens was like, "Where were you?" We're like, "Oh, we got lost." It's like, "Okay, whatever." And he goes on with his stuff. He didn't seem to care.
Yeah, that's one of the most treasured parts of the mission for me, and I'm sure a lot of others, is it's just a unique experience to go up Pratt's Hill, to dedicate your mission at the beginning, and then to return and report when you go home.
Yep.
I don't know. I know there's other missions like in New York. I think they go to the Sacred Grove to do sort of the same thing, but the significance that Pratt's Hill has for Scotland as a mission, and then it becomes significant to us personally serving
Absolutely.
there. So, pretty cool.
Yeah.
How about
Go ahead. What was that?
How about memories of Sister Vriens?
Oh yeah, she was great. I always loved her optimism and enthusiasm, and she liked to bring a sense of humor. Sometimes, I was a bit of a strict missionary. I think I was known that way at times. But Sister Vriens liked to laugh and sometimes bring a little bit of sense of humor to it, which I really appreciated. And that again is similar as I was saying before. When you get to know President Vriens and you get to know Sister Vriens, because I was in the same building as them, the mission home. You get to know them about what they like to do and what are little silly things they might be accustomed to, or quirks and things like that. And so they were both great. Sister Vriens was, the one taking care of the missionaries so well and cooking for so many of them. And I was glad to get to know them both.
Good. All right. Tell us another story that you found like humorous on your mission. Funny story. What we want.
Yeah, there's definitely some very good funny stories. Kind of already covered the Ba. That was one that was crazy. Here's another one that was very interesting. When I was in Orkney, I got a lot of good experiences there. I was there during the dark months because the thing is during the winter, it was like the sun wouldn't come up till like 10 o'clock and it was down by like 3 o'clock. And it was so dark. But there was something called the Old Man of Hoy, which was this rock structure that was off of one of these other islands. You had to take a boat to get to the other island. And we did. And we wanted to hike to it. And it was a very windy day. So we hiked to the Old Man of Hoy, and I want to get a picture of it. Now it's a tall cliff. It's very high up. Kind of dangerous, actually, a little bit. And it was so I walk all the way to the end of it, and I had my raincoat on. It was a black raincoat, and the winds were very strong. So I'm standing on the edge to get a close picture of the Old Man of Hoy. My companion's taking a picture, and my coat is literally blowing like a cape almost because it was so windy. And I didn't think anything about it. I was a boy who didn't really fear of death, I guess. I got the picture. I was happy about it, and I go back, and then I go show one of the members of the branch this picture. Like, oh yeah, we were at the Old Man of Hoy. Here's some of the pictures I had. He takes one, and he had a cane, and he banged it on the table. Like, you stupid missionary! You could have fallen off that cliff, and you wouldn't have been found until your body washed up in Canada. That was what he said. The current would have taken you to Canada. That was the next place you would have been found. He was like making fun of me. Not making fun of me. He was so mad. He's like, I can't believe you'd be so stupid to go right next to the cliff on a windy day, that if a gust would have blown you off, you wouldn't have come back.
It's true.
Yeah.
I can attest to that. My gosh. Were you part of the missionary cohort that served at the pig farm?
Yes. Oh yeah. We had some good times. We'd go help out there. I was definitely part of that. And sometimes we'd organize district service projects up there. We'd have missionaries come up. And there was another farmer that would go help, and they loved it because we would show up with like sometimes 8 missionaries, and helping on the farm was like their glorious day where it wasn't a pig farm, but it was another farm that they got a whole bunch of help.
I think Elder Hill said you worked on a dairy farm too at one point.
Yeah, it was a dairy farm. Yeah, that was one with the cows, and they would have a dairy. That was the one
he kind of made fun of you being a city slicker for that.
Yeah, it was valid. I was not a farmer. I was not. So for me, the farm life I wasn't used to. I still remember another time on Orkney though. I felt bad. There was someone who we were just knocking doors, and we'd drive from house to house. You had to drive because so many farms were so spread out. And the other Bradley and I, we were dressed in our suit as usual, and we come to this one farm where it was a wife and a husband and a child that were working. They were exhausted. And they see us pull up, and we actually offer to help them. Like, can we help serve? And they're like, no. The wife, though, was like, yes. She's like, yes, please. And the husband's like, no, I don't want you here. Just go away. I don't want to hear what you have to say. I don't want your help. And we tried to keep pushing, like, we will help. We'll go home and change and come right back. We can help you here on your farm. And the wife was like, please. She's looking at her husband like, please let them help us. Like, they were clearly exhausted. They were dirty. They were worn out. They were doing a lot of work on the farm. And I think we could have been hopefully a lot of help. And I felt bad that we were so rejected. On another time, it was a funny story too. This was in Edinburgh. knocking doors, and we see somebody who was trying to get a couch into their house, their flat, and we're coming by. We say, "Hey, can we help you with the couch?" He's like, "No, no, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. You can go. Just keep going." I'm like, "You sure? It won't take us a couple seconds if we help you." And he's like, "No, no, no, I'm good. I'm good." And so he had this couch he was really trying to push. Well, we keep knocking doors, keep going all the way down the road, go the other side, start coming back. We see the guy over an hour later, and he's still there trying to get his
Oh
couch.
man.
He's sweating though. His couch is, you can tell, in a different spot than when we got it. But he's still trying to push it in. His wife was there, but she was pregnant, and she wasn't allowed to lift anything for, I guess, health reasons or something. But she was inside, seeing her husband sweating, trying so hard to get it in, but couldn't. And so we ask again, "Do you want some help?" And he's like, "Yes, please." We had it in 30 seconds, right? Because we had 3 guys lifting on each side, turn it just right, get it in like 30 seconds. It was less than a minute. The guy relieved and said, "Thank you so much. I wish I would have taken the help." And that just reminded me of times, if someone's willing to help, why don't you just take it? Again, sometimes people just wanted us to go away, even if we're just trying to help them with something. So that was
that just reminded me of the first vision video that we watched with people when the preacher says, "Beware of pride, boy." We watched that video so many times that had it memorized. We could watch it in our sleep. And that's truly what it was. He was trying to do it himself, which, bless his heart, that would not be me. I would immediately say, "Get me out of here. Let's get this done."
Yeah. Yeah, that was a funny one. But again, there were so many experiences on the mission that it's fun to look back at them. And there were some people some areas were just different than others from how we were received. I mean, I feel like when I was in the Glasgow area, Johnston specifically, there was a lot of groups that just, there were some people who threw rocks at us at times. There was very little interest there. There were more antagonistic against us, make fun of us, things like that. Like Edinburgh, the parts I was in just seemed a little better. People were more sometimes interested in it. Maybe talk to some more people. Weren't so rejected, but still people didn't always want to necessarily accept the message, but they wouldn't just be so mean about it.
Yeah. I always find it interesting when people, like at work or whatever, they find out, like, "Oh, you were in Scotland for 2 years, missionary. How was that?" And it's completely different than like somebody who's gone there for a touring trip, a tourist type activity. And
Yeah.
but frankly, it was hard. Like there was, I don't know. I had people slam the door. They're like, "I don't believe in God. I'm Catholic," and slam the door, and like, just like, wow, it's a little different. And
Yeah, we had another guy like that. It was interesting. We had one come to this house, and the guy's like, "No, I'm Catholic," and slams the door quickly. I'm like, okay, well, that's pretty common. But we kept going down and down and down and start coming back. As we're coming back, we suddenly see him waving us to come back to him. And he invites us in, and he's like, "I'm sorry I turned you away. I just, I think, I can't remember exactly, but I think he was mourning because it was like the anniversary of his mother's death from some time ago. And he was a devout Catholic, and he just realized he shouldn't be so mean and rude to turn people away. And that was almost a sign, though, that someone was coming, offering, trying to help, talk to him about the gospel and about Christ at the time he needs it. He welcomed us in, and we did teach him. And he was one as well. It was kind of stubborn in his ways. Yeah, I don't remember if he ever got baptized or joined the church, but we did come back multiple times after that just to share the gospel with him and talk to him about it. And he had so many truths as well that he did want to learn and was thankful for, and that we aligned with, but he just still couldn't quite give up what he wanted to hold on to from the Catholic Church.
it's like a story President Monson tells about when he was bishop and he went to visit a family. I think it was a part member family, and the husband was not a member. Sitting on the front porch, he could see him And he basically said, "No, I don't want to talk to you, Bishop. Shoot him away." And then years later, he got a phone call saying, "I felt so bad about how I treated you on my doorstep that once we moved away to California, I studied the gospel, and now we've been sealed in the temple and all this."
Yeah,
Sometimes I guess people have to have that experience to be humbled in the right way, but it's pretty interesting.
for sure.
All right. What else do you want to know, Zach?
I want to know what your experiences were with regards to the people in Johnston, because I was only there for a 6-week period, and I just love that ward. So many wonderful members. The Hale family is obviously the one that comes to my mind immediately, but beyond that, there was a couple of amazing members that really are just the beating heart of that ward.
Do you remember Gerald McGroarty? Was he there?
That name doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, I really like Johnson. It was amazing because part of that area, you got the Celtic and the Rangers.
Right.
The football teams were intense, and if you're wearing a Celtic jersey and you're in a Rangers area, you're gonna get hated on. But yeah, that war, I did love the time I was there. I really did. Moira Warren, you remember Moira Warren?
Yes, Moira Warren is one of my favorite people in this world.
Yeah, I'm very glad you asked about her or mentioned her, Johnson, because of her. I was there, and I still remember we were teaching her, and she was one where we kept teaching, and she'd been taught for a while, and just was scared to come to church almost, because she was so active in her previous church that she was a member of, and the leaders of that church that she was in kept telling her, "Don't go, they're going to deceive you," and all this stuff. But yet when we would talk with her, she would feel the Spirit. And so we kept encouraging her, "Please come, please come." And she said, "Okay, I'll come on Sunday." But then she wouldn't come. And she kept doing that over and over and over again. And then all of a sudden, one day she did show up, and she was sitting in the back. And I was so excited. I'm like, "We've been wanting you to come for so long." And once she made that one step to finally come, she felt the Spirit that was there, and she knew it was true. And she had kind of known for a while, but it was so hard to take that first step to finally come to church and show up, when so often she kept being told by her other church not to go. And then she did end up being baptized, and she was like this stalwart member. And I still write to her. She still sends me Christmas cards every year.
Wow.
It's been amazing to keep in contact with her. But yeah, she was such a strong member when she joined. And the other one that I really love, Rhoda Ebbs from that ward. That one, I don't know if you got to meet Rhoda Ebbs.
I don't remember the Ebbs, unfortunately, no.
Yeah, she was baptized shortly before. She got baptized when I was there, and I actually got to be part of that experience. I wasn't the one who baptized her, but it was the missionaries had done the work, and I came in, and we'd often call her Grandma Rhoda. She treated the missionaries like we were family. She really did, and she was always so kind. She'd always love having us over. Give us something to drink or some biscuits or something like that, and we'd keep visiting her. And she wanted us to call her Grandma Rhoda because she wanted us to feel like we're part of the family. So, but yeah, I really did love the Johnston Ward. It really was a great time. And again, the companions I had there were great. Elder Annika was a really good companion. And so we knocked a lot of doors and went around a lot of places, and I had a lot of good experiences while I was there. It was a fantastic area.
So did you say that you were in Johnston 2? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was called Johnston 2 at the time. It covered Bathgate, Johnston,
Linwood,
yeah.
Okay. So were there 2 sets of missionaries then at that time in Johnston?
At that time there were, yeah. And part of why that one was so interesting to me is that I had family history from that area. So Renfrewshire and Linwood area, I have a great grandfather from Scotland. It was an area, so I felt like I was walking in the area of my ancestors in some ways.
That's cool.
Did he
Yeah.
join the church there?
No, he didn't. It was one of his descendants who ended up doing it.
Okay.
But yeah, my grandma on my mother's side was the first to join the church there. My grandpa, my mom's side, has family history back really far, and on my Egan side, my dad's side, it goes all the way back to the Joseph Smith family joined the church. But yeah, I've got some Scottish ancestry was in that area that I have family records of and picture of them. So it really was great.
That's awesome. Before we go, you have to tell us your favorite story about Elder Hill as a greenie.
Well, my favorite story about Elder Hill. I have to take a second to think about that one, actually. We had a lot of good experiences together. Yeah, okay. It's got to be the pig farm one. So Elder Hill was, again, a funny guy. He was so excited to be a missionary. And we would just, when we'd go to the pig farm, he liked to have fun on the farm. I don't know. Like, there was one really windy day, and he wanted to help a chicken fly. And so he picked a chicken up and threw it up into the wind, and the wind can carry it pretty far. It actually went pretty far when it's trying to flap its wings. And we would go shovel out and clean out the pig stalls, which is not a very pleasant thing. But yeah, he still seemed to be excited about it somehow. I don't know. He was always up for the pig farm and always interested in going to the farm. So he was like an energetic, enthusiastic missionary. And I still remember when I first met him, so at the mission home, because I was the mission home to get ready to meet the new missionaries that were coming, and we did not yet know who we were. However, as I was walking by to go upstairs to the room where they were going to tell us, I did see the board that had the pictures of all the missionaries, and I saw my picture next to his. So he did not yet know I would be about his companion, but I knew he was going to be my companion. And so I was able to kind of have a little insight. It's kind of got to, I didn't tell him. I let President Vriens be the one to announce it, as he always did. I remember getting up and saying, okay, who's the lucky person who gets to go with me to Orkney? As I was walking up, those are the words I said. And even though I knew who it was going to be, I saw it was going to be kind of trying to build up the importance and value of Orkney as a place. And then his name got called by President Vriens, and he's like got this big smile on his face. He's like, yes, I'm going to Orkney. And then we went out to Orkney, and we had a really good time. We shared lots of experiences. And yeah, again, we used to laugh at the farm. You had to joke when you're at the pig farm because you try and burn the time and find a way to laugh about all the experiences you have up there. So.
Yes, indeed. I again, same time frame as you. I remember the dark days, and my mom was curious. She's like, I wonder how far north he is. I guess Kirkwall is the same latitude as Juneau, Alaska.
Oh, yeah.
So ultimately, 10 a.m. it came up, and sun's gone by 2:30, 3 o'clock. I mean, it made for some really long, drab days, but we made the most of the sunshine when it was out. And obviously, having the cloud cover of Scotland didn't help when the sun was out. But it is what it is. It was a really unique experience, and I loved it.
Yeah, and Elder Hill was there with me in Orkney. Or when we were in the Ba together, so because that was over Christmas and New Year's Day, so that was an experience we had together, just watching the crazy street fight. It's so intense. They throw the ball in the middle, and everyone's like grappling to get it, and it's kind of cold out, but everyone's steaming. So like there's this steam just coming up from the group because everyone's working hard to try and get the ball. Basically, because a lot of them are drunk though. They had a lot to drink usually before that. And I still remember I was like, I got to at least get a picture in here. So I had He'll take a picture of me while I'm pushing one side and smiling as I look back at the picture. And so the joke was spot the foreigner, the missionary, or where's Waldo, sort of a kind of thing. Just basically, it's the one guy smiling in the bawah. This big group of angry steam rising up with one smiling guy in the middle.
You were enjoying it more than everybody else, apparently.
Yeah.
That's
So, yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Is there anybody that maybe you didn't mention as a companion, but that you served around or with that you want us to try to find and get on here?
Yeah,
figure out what they've been up to?
have you had Elder Bradley?
Not yet.
Yeah, Elder Jared Bradley. He's a good guy. I really liked. He's one of my favorite companions, and partially because I was talking about it before. We had a lot of spiritual conversations about the gospel. We had a lot of deeper conversations at times too. Along with him very well, and so it'd be great if you can get him on. The other one is Thomas Brownlow. I actually haven't been able. Elder Bradley, I've been able to keep in contact with, but Elder Brownlow, I haven't been able to. I don't know where it's up to, but his Elder Thomas Brownlow, he was from England. He was a great companion. He was only my companion for 6 weeks. He said even to me that he didn't like me for the first couple of weeks. He said I was a bit of a tough companion to get used to. But once we did get used to each other, I liked him the whole time. I didn't have a 2-week period. I didn't like him, but apparently I was tough on him or something. And then I ended up being very glad. So, yeah.
I'm sure you know this, but they both served in leadership positions, and I'm sure that they can attest that you helped them get there.
I hope so.
Yes, indeed.
That's part of this too, is we're trying to, I know a lot of us have lost contact with each other over the years. I think actually I saw you at a Highland Games in Utah when we were both.
Yeah, I used to go to them back when I was still there.
Yeah,
that's right.
But it's been years, so yeah, part of that is reaching out to this network of fellow missionaries and making those connections again, and getting people on and just hearing what they've been up to, because we all have that common bond of having served together. So
yeah,
definitely. Agreed. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Yeah, I'm glad to be part of it. It was a lot of fun. It's good talking about some of the missionary experiences we had, and it's amazing how much the mission can impact your life for the good. You get much more out of that sacrifice than you give. So,
yeah, it's absolutely true. Thank you, Brandon.
Oh, very good.
We'll let you know when this is published, and so you can share it out to your family and friends too if you want.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Have a good one.
All right, gentlemen.
Thanks, Brandon. Have a good one. Bye.